Good morning, I'm Tamara Shoemaker. If you know me, you might know that I despise making 2 trips for something when I might be able to do that whole trip in one go. So one day, for instance, I found myself in front of the refrigerator section at Food Lion staring at the myriad array of 6-ounce yogurt containers. And you probably already know where this is going. But anyway, there were so many flavors, there was so much deliciousness. I glanced at my watch, there was so little time. I'd run in for a second to grab some yogurt, and I ignored the shopping cart because I just wanted a few yogurts. Mental calculations as I was standing there ran through my head. If I got 12, that would be 2 a day for the next week until I could come back for a real shopping trip. So breakfast and lunch for 6 days, and that would hold me. At that point, I was an off-campus undergraduate college student working on a work-study budget, on a work-study budget, and eating was a real struggle in those days, and I refused to do the ramen noodle thing. So yogurt it was. And so I started grabbing the yogurts, and I was piling them carefully along, my left arm, balancing them sort of beneath my chin, sort of wedging them in. And then I was reaching for some more with my right arm. And then I got them all in there, and somehow, gingerly, I managed to gather all 12 of those yogurts. And then I turned and I started to inch my way towards the front of the store. And of course, you know what happened. My chin pressed just an ounce too hard. One yogurt popped out and fell, and then all the rest of them fell. So clean up on aisle 1. And I was really embarrassed about that one. And as I stared at the slick, globby, yogurty mess on the tile floor, I realized that the thing that I should have been gripping the whole time was the handle of my shopping cart, which would have taken perfect care of all 12 of my messy mistakes. A friend of mine spoke yesterday about some significant battles that she's fighting in her personal life, and she said this phrase twice as she cupped her fingertips, almost like she was gently cupping a butterfly. And she said, "You find that you need to hold your life lightly." And that spoke to me because we spend so much of our time and our efforts and our resources and our energy holding on to this life rather than preparing our hearts for the next one. Not, don't mistake me, not that we're to waste this life or treat it trivially or disrespect the one physical life that we're given to live, right? But when we grip so hard what is not ours to control, we fight a losing battle. So today I return to Joshua chapter 23, which is labeled as Joshua's farewell to the leaders. It's his final word, his last testimony to the people that he served with, right? And it's significant that he's talking to the leaders of the people, the ones that, he's leaving with instructions for how to serve. His instructions to the people of Israel are going to be kind of similar. I think that's going to be in the last chapter. But the leaders, they've got a bigger responsibility, right? They have people watching them and emulating them and following them. And they've got an example to set and a way to walk. So what way is that? Joshua says, "Be very strong. Be careful to obey all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, without turning aside to the right or to the left. Do not associate with these nations that remain among you. Do not invoke the names of their gods or swear by them. You must not serve them or bow down to them, but you are to hold fast to the Lord your God, as you have until now." Joshua 23, verses 6-8. Walk a straight path, you guys. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. That's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. So going back to my friend's phrase, you'll find that you must hold your life lightly. I kept turning that over in my mind. By nature, I'm stubborn. I'm clingy. I cling to the things that matter the most to me. I hold them closest to my heart. I want to control those things. I want to control the situations and the circumstances around those things. I want to keep them within my wingspan so that I can protect them. And Joshua says, hold fast to the Lord your God. And I suppose I've realized, as I've walked along this path that the Lord has set for me, that when I fill up my hands with the Lord, when I hold fast to him, I have no room in my hands to hold fast to all the accoutrements and excesses that I want to bring along with me. Hold fast to whom? Hold fast to the Lord your God. Joshua says this then, the Lord has driven out before you great and powerful nations. To this day, no one has been able to withstand you. One of you routs 1,000 because the Lord your God fights for you, just as he promised. So be very careful to love the Lord your God. Joshua 23, 9-11. So look at that last line. Be very careful. Love is a choice, guys. You know that popular phrase, falling in love, right? Everybody knows that. That feeling is mostly based on sentiment, right? How many pheromones we've got in our body at any particular moment and whether or not there's a full moon, okay? On the other hand, the love, for example, that my parents choose to show for each other, that's just one example. The love that has pulled them through 57 years of marriage in August is the kind of love that survived diaper rash and midnight feedings and kids tussling, right? And work pressure and financial collapses and heart attacks and cancer, right? It's a choice. That love was a choice. It pulled them through. So be very careful to love the Lord your God. Choose to love him. That means when you don't feel like loving him, do it anyway. Have you ever been mad at God? Have I ever been mad at God? Yeah. Yes, I have. Have I ever stormed my way to heaven's gate and demanded answers? In my arrogance and human frailty? Yes, I have. Always the Lord has led me back to where I failed and where he was faithful even when I couldn't see it. And every time, even in the blackest storms, I choose him. I choose to love him. So on the other end of the Bible, Paul writes a letter not long before his own death. And I was impressed this morning with how similar his message to Timothy is to Joshua's message to the leaders of Israel. So Paul charges Timothy. He says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15. He goes on in the next chapter. He says, but as for you, continue in what you have learned and have become convinced of, because you know those from whom you have learned it and how you have known the holy scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Christ Jesus. 2 Timothy 3:14 and 15. Next chapter later, for the time will come when men will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what they're itching. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. But you, Timothy, you keep your head in all situations. You walk a straight path. That was a little paraphrase, sorry. Endure hardship. Do the work of an evangelist. Discharge all the duties of your ministry. 2 Timothy 4:3-5. Timothy's a young leader. He's growing up in the church. He's blooming in ministry under Paul's encouragement and under the instruction of the scripture. So Paul tells him to do his best to present himself to God. Do your best. Be very careful. Strive for the goal. Strain toward it. Don't turn aside to the right or to the left. Walk the straight path. None of this happens accidentally, right? Hold the life around you lightly. Hold on to your God with a granite resolve, with the grip like iron. Paul tells the Corinthians earlier, he says, I have resolved to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. Resolve. It's that 57-year marriage of my parents. Resolve. It's my own 17-year marriage with my husband. You know, it's a lifetime of holding fast to the Lord. It's not something that just falls into my lap, you know. It's not just an accidental blooper, you know, oh, whoops, I accidentally followed the Lord. It is a firm reasoning in my own head and in my own heart. I am going to walk this path. So at the end of Joshua's speech to the leaders of Israel, he said, now I am about to go the way of all the earth. He's getting ready to die. But he needs them to understand something because he's not going to be there to remind them later. And they need to know this for themselves in their own hearts. He says, you know with all your heart and soul, you know this, that not one of all the good promises that the Lord your God has given you has failed. Every promise has been fulfilled. Not one has failed. Joshua 23:14. Not one has failed. Why? Because Israel held fast to the Lord. One of you routs 1,000 because the Lord your God fights for you just as he promised. Joshua 23:10. So Joshua finishes with a warning not to forsake the Lord that Israel has chosen to love. Back in 2 Timothy, Paul ends his letter with this. The time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. That's 2 Timothy 4:7-8. So Paul's getting ready to die, and he needs Timothy to understand something, just like Joshua needed the Israelite leaders to understand something. So Paul needed Timothy to understand this life is not a sedate walk. It's not a rooting down into the ground to stay steady for the entire time. It's not a running backward. It's not running along the sidelines, gathering things. There is one direction, and it is toward the finish line. How we run the race is entirely up to us, but at the end, and an end there will be, will we receive the crown of righteousness? If we long for his appearing, if we choose to hold on to him, if we are very careful to love the Lord our God, then yes. So all of those things I try to crowd around myself to bring into my own wingspan, right? To keep within the center of my control, I've got to let those things go. I'm holding them lightly. My job, my way of life, my deep friendships, my children, I'm holding them lightly. My husband even, I'm holding him lightly. The only thing that I'm gripping with every last reserve of strength that I've got with a grip like iron is Christ, my rock. Because the Lord fights for you. So all those things that I just released will fall into his hands, which are the only hands capable, including my own, of well-keeping. Hope that's a challenge for you today. I'll see you tomorrow.